So when excuses come into mind, wash them out, because you have a certain standard to stick to. You're going to make sure you're drinking that water. You're going to make sure you're hitting the gym 4 days a week, right? That's the standard. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world per se. Hit the gym 4 days a week, right? If that's your goal, of course. Drink that water, 2-4 bottles a day, whatever it might be. You might need to even start off with a little plastic water bottle, 500 milliliters, right? Drink that. Start somewhere. What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Success Spectrum podcast, where we dive deep into the world of finance, entrepreneurship, and personal development. I'm your host, Kadeem, sharing stories and insights to help you on the pursuit of becoming the next best version of you. Today, what we're talking about is a concept called raising your zero. Now, I was actively doing this when I first heard the concept. I didn't realize what it was at first, but I first heard this from someone named David Shands, right? Social Proof Podcast. If you haven't heard of him, look him up. He has amazing content for entrepreneurs and podcasters. Essentially what the concept is, it's about raising your standard, right? Your bank account, your savings account right now, let's say, might be at literally the number zero. But the idea behind raise your zero is your new zero is, let's say, $1,000, right? Or $5,000. Whatever best suits you. But the idea is you no longer go to zero. Your new zero is 1,000. So you never let your account drop below 1,000, because once it reaches 1,000, you basically stop spending and stop using it, because in your mind, there's nothing left, right? Whether, again, that's 5,000, 1,000, or so on. Now, in a nutshell, that's what raising your zero is all about. It's about your standards, raising your standards, raising your zero. Some personal stories on that. Let's start with the financial story, right? So zero, my accounts were at zero. I would use it, go to zero, right? Paycheck to paycheck, essentially. But I got to a point where I said, you know what? This doesn't necessarily make sense. My new zero, I didn't say those words to myself because I didn't know the concept at the time, but I made sure there was at least, I started off with, I think, 500 in my account. And then 1,000 in my account, and then 2,000. I made sure it did not drop below 2,000, because in a worst case scenario, let's say, that's my emergency fund. But at the same time, if I stick to the same standard, if you keep doing what you've always done, you'll keep getting what you've always gotten. So if I stick to that same standard, I would never be able to raise my standard, first of all, but never be able to raise my lifestyle, if you will. Right, the things I'm going after to attract the things that I want. So raising your zero is a concept that can help with that. So financially, again, for me, that was part of it. I went from having zero in my account some days to I'm not dropping below 1,000. I'm not dropping below 2,000. So I raised my zero in that aspect. Working out in the gym. You don't necessarily, depending on what your goal is with working out, but you don't necessarily put on, I'll call it muscle mass, if you keep lifting the same weights. You got to increase the weight. And eventually, with increasing the weight, you might start to do your warm-up reps with heavier weight. Because let's say your warm-up rep or your warm-up set is 12 reps. Now you're going to lift a 20-pound dumbbell. You can lift that way more than 12 reps. So you might start off with a 30 or 35, right? So again, raising your zero, if you don't do that, you're not going to get the results that you want to get. You're going to keep lifting the same exact weights, thinking, why am I not getting to where I want to go? You're going to become discouraged. Push-ups for the longest time, since I started high school, since I was younger, all the way up until high school, and a few years after that, I could only do 30 push-ups, only 30 for as long as I could remember, right? Of course, it was a mental block, because once I started to raise my zero, if you will, raise my standard, I literally just added an extra 5 a night, an extra 5 push-ups every night, to the point where I was doing 120, maybe 125 push-ups at a time. How did I get there? By increasing and raising my standard. And that's what this episode is all about, raising your standard, right? So how can you apply this strategy to your own personal life, right? Again, we talked about finances to a degree. Right now, you might be living paycheck to paycheck. You might not be living paycheck to paycheck, but you might not like the number that you see in your investment or in your bank account. And what you can do then is, again, raise your zero, raise how much you're putting aside every month, right? If you're only putting aside $100 a month for investments, put a little bit more, right? Increase it a little bit, little by little. They say, what 1%, if you become 1% better every day, after 100 days, you're 100% better. And what is 1%? 1% is nothing. You won't even realize it. Be like the little bit more effort that it takes to get that extra 1%. It's not going to affect you in a negative manner. You're not going to be extra tired because of that 1% difference. So when it comes to your finances, again, put away a little bit more, right? Stop living paycheck to paycheck. Instead of spending your whole check, keep $100, let's say, in your bank account. Start there. Start small. The next paycheck, keep an extra $150. So now you're already at $250, right? Just add little by little, of course, and raise your standard each time, because that'll get you to a better position compared to where you are now and versus where you want to be, right? So from a financial perspective, that's one way to raise your zero is, again, make sure that account does not drop below whatever number you set in mind. That $250, make sure it does not drop below that. And the next paycheck, you put an extra $250 in there, let's say, make sure it does not drop below $500. And ultimately, you can keep increasing it. And as you increase it, first of all, that financial insecurity, which I talk about, will be off your back. You won't have that anymore. Secondly, you'll notice your life start to take a shift for the better, of course. Right? Another concept or way to utilize this concept is drinking water, right? If you want to drink more water every day, let's say an extra bottle of water. Maybe you're not even drinking one bottle of water right now. Grab a bottle of water, like a liter or whatever it is for you, 32 ounces if you're in the States, and keep it with you. Just keep it with you throughout the day and sip it throughout the day. That's it. When you feel thirsty, sip it throughout the day. Right? That'll help you to, again, raise your zero, because you're no longer drinking 0 bottles of water a day. Now your goal is to drink at least 1 bottle of water a day. It's not a lot, but it's better than what you were doing before. All right. The next week, let's say you raise it to 2 bottles a day. Right. And just, again, keep increasing from there. Right. When it comes to working out, if you're in the gym 1 time a week right now, 2 times a week, and your goal is to go more frequently, increase the number. Right. Or if you notice sometimes you miss, I'll put it this way. If you notice sometimes you're there 3 days a week, sometimes 2 days a week, sometimes 1 day a week, but your aim is to go 4 days a week, you can plan it out and structure it where you're going to go Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and let's say Saturday or whatever the case is. But at the same time, you can raise your standard and not give yourself any excuses. This is a big part of it, because we love to give ourselves excuses. We all have excuses. Every single human being on this planet, we have some great excuses. And I've heard it said this way before, so I'll share this with you. Excuses sound best to those who are making them. Right? My excuses sound the best to me. Your excuses sound the best to you. But ultimately, it's just an excuse. Are they good reasons? Yes. I'm sure they are good reasons. I have many good reasons why I probably shouldn't even be here recording this episode today. But that's just a reason or an excuse for me not to do something. But the prize, let's say, or the reward for me doing the thing is better than my excuse. Right? If I sit in my excuse, I'm not going to do the activity to get me to that reward. But if I do the activity, I can get that reward. And that is ultimately, to me, better than my excuse. So when excuses come into mind, wash them out, because you have a certain standard to stick to. You're going to make sure you're drinking that water. You're going to make sure you're hitting the gym 4 days a week, right? That's the standard. It doesn't matter what's going on in the world per se. Hit the gym 4 days a week, right? If that's your goal, of course. Drink that water, 2-4 bottles a day, whatever it might be. You might need to even start off with a little plastic water bottle, 500 milliliters, right? Drink that. Start somewhere. I don't necessarily recommend the plastic and so on, but start somewhere. That's what this is about. Your standard. You have a standard right now. Whatever it is, realize what it is and then raise it. All right? Again, there's always 2 points. Know where you're at and then know where you want to go. All right? Another example is quiet, right? Peaceful reflection time. Quiet, peaceful reflection time. I find that especially in this busy world, not enough of us, and myself included, we don't take time to be on our own, be in our own mental and our own mind. And whether it's let our thoughts flow, whether it's pray, whether it's reflect on things that have happened or steps that you've made, either mistakes or just, growth or positive steps, whatever it might be. But we don't take time to pause. And I think that's a powerful tool, thing to utilize, if you will, because for many reasons. But if we don't pause and reflect, how do we know we're making the right decisions? If we don't reflect on a decision we made, how do we know it was the right one? Or how do we know if we're doing the right things to make that decision the right decision? We don't. Until we pause and reflect and think about what we're doing, then we're just going to continue doing the same thing, whether it's good for us or bad for us, or good for those around us or bad for those around us, right? So again, quiet time, peaceful time. Set out a certain amount of hours a week, maybe, or a few minutes a day, whatever it might be. Instead of doing it 0 times, a minimum, I'm going to do this 15 minutes a day, right? Because right now we're doing 0, none. But the idea, again, is to raise that and say 15 minutes a day is the absolute minimum I am going to do. I need to find a closet somewhere, find the bathroom, wherever it is you can hide. If you got a family, hide from your family, whatever the case may be, and get that 15 minutes for yourself, right? I'm not saying don't tell your spouse about it. Tell your spouse, but find that 15 minutes for yourself, whether it's a drive, whether you go to the park, sit on a bench, go in your backyard, sit on a chair, whatever you need to do, right? To get that 15 minutes for yourself and stick to it. Reading is another big thing. Reading. You might read a certain amount of pages a day. You might read a certain amount of sections in a book a day, which is, each chapter has a few sections maybe. You might read a chapter a day. Great. You might not read it all, but you want to. Start by reading a page a day. Set a certain standard for yourself. I remember when I first started reading, more heavily, I should say. For me, it was, I just told myself 5 pages or five minutes. I think I told myself 5 minutes a day. Do you think I only read 5 minutes a day when I told myself I'm going to read 5 minutes a day? That was my minimum, by the way. I raised my from 0 to 5 minutes when it came to reading. But do you think I only read for 5 minutes a day? Some days I would read for 6, the odd day, but normally I'm reading for 10, 20, 25, some days 40 minutes. So again, raising your standard, raising your 0 is something that can help you obviously in many aspects. And that's why I'm going through all these different scenarios for you so you can see how it can help you in your own personal life. Because you stick to the standards you have. Again, the things you've done up until now are the reason where you are. The standards or lack thereof that you have are the reason why we are where we are. If we change that, alter it, increase it, make it better in alignment with who we want to be and where we want to go, then of course we're going to get to where we want to go. It's just a matter of our standards. If you have a business, your sales calls, right, or the amount of sales you make in a week or a day, raise that. Because again, we're at 0, let's say, for some days. The minimum, obviously excluding your off days, which might be a Sunday or a Saturday or both. Instead of 0, make it 3, make it 5, make it 10. Wherever you are, raise it from where you are just a little bit, because we all can do a little bit more. There's a lot going on in life, and there always is. Some of you have kids, some of you have a husband, wife, whatever it may be, dog, children, pets. But at the end of the day, we can all do just a little bit more. Because again, that 1% difference, over the course of time, 1% difference every day can get us to a completely different lifestyle, situation, completely different person than we are today. Right? So that's another thing you can do if it's business to raise your zero. Now, my challenge to you, this is a short episode today, is to think of something, right? Think of two areas in your life right now where you could raise your zero from 0 to 1, from 0 to 5, from 0 to 10, right? Whatever you feel comfortable with that you know you can manage. Not sticking with 0, because you're not going to get anything different sticking with 0. You're only going to get what you've always gotten. But going from 0 to 1, going from 0 to 5 or 0 to 10, whatever it might be, whether it's your reading, whether it's going outside for a walk, finding your peaceful time, whether it's drinking more water, eating more healthy, whatever you need to do or feel like you need to do. My challenge to you rather is to write that down somewhere. Whether you take a note in your phone, send a text to somebody, have an accountability partner, send it to me, right? My social media links are below as always. You can reach out to me. You can comment on this YouTube channel, this YouTube video, and drop it down there. Let's get some conversation going and share with me. Let's have that conversation. What you plan to adjust and change. Which areas you plan to raise your zero. It could even be spending more time with your children, spending more time with your spouse. We do 0 date nights a week. Some weeks, let's do a minimum of 1, right? A minimum of 2 per month or whatever the case might be, right? You know what you want. I'm just giving you different scenarios or situations that it can click for you to say, yes, this is something I need to do or I want to do. So my challenge to you again, 1, figure out those 2 areas where you want to increase or raise your zero. 2, drop a comment, either send me a DM, let's say on Instagram or Facebook or on this YouTube channel. You can drop it there. We can get a community conversation going. All right. And then, of course, stick to it. Stick to it. Don't just drop it on this episode, or don't just send me one message, but in another week, send me another message. Let me know how it's going. In a week after that, send me another one. Give me updates. I want to know what's going on and if this is helping you at all. Right? So hopefully you found this beneficial, and that's my call to action to you, but hopefully you found this beneficial in helping you raise and increase your zero or raise and increase your standard. Because I've said it a few times already, but if we keep doing what we've always done, we will keep getting what we've always gotten. The only way to get something different is to do something different. The only way to read a book is to read a book. Open it up and read 1 page a day even. If it's 365 pages in that book and you read 1 page a day, in a year, you'll finish that book. It took you a long time, but hopefully you're dissecting each page and you can get to that end goal, right? But ultimately, if you just increase it and read 1 extra page a day, so 2 pages a day, now you're doubling the time that you're going to take to, or I guess you're cutting the time in half rather, that it's going to take you to finish that book. All right. Our standards ultimately determine our life. Whatever standards and habits we have determine our life. Some people might say, show me your standards, show me your habits, and I'll show you your life. All right. So hopefully you found this beneficial. You already know what you can do if you like the episode. Like, subscribe, and share it with somebody. I appreciate you stopping by. This is the Success Spectrum Podcast. I'm your host, Kadeem McLean. And again, remember, every single step you take is a step towards becoming that optimal version of you. All right. So we'll see you next time.